We can look at situations and ask ourselves, how could it possibly have gotten this bad? And the truth is, the collapse didn't happen in one dramatic decision. It was a long series of compromises that slowly became normal. And in 2 Kings chapter 15, we're going to see the reigns of Azariah, Zechariah, Shallum, Menahem, Pekahiah, Pekah, and Jotham. A lot of kings today. And the rapid succession of these kings, the violence, the political instability that is consuming Israel, and the quiet faithfulness of Judah's Jotham. And I'm going to give you one practical action to help you identify the small compromises that could be weakening your own spiritual life in this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. If you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps you out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Now let's get a little bit of context into the chapter. So, 2 Kings chapter 15 is one of the most politically chaotic chapters in the history of the divided kingdom, because it begins with Azariah, or Uzziah, reigning over Judah for 52 years. He does what is right in the sight of the Lord. Although the high places remain, his reign ends with him becoming a leper and living separately from the people. The chapter then rapidly moves through the kings of Israel. We see Zechariah, who reigns only 6 months before being assassinated by Shallum. Shallum, who reigns only 1 month, and then he's killed by Menahem. Menahem brutally consolidates his power and pays tribute to Syria. Then Pekahiah, who is assassinated by Pekah, and then Pekah, who reigns while Assyria begins taking significant portions of Israel's territory. The chapter finally returns to Judah and introduces Jotham, who does what is right in the sight of the Lord. And there is a striking contrast here. Israel becomes increasingly unstable, while Judah has a king still walking in the ways of the Lord. So there is a striking contrast in all of this. Okay, let's read verses 1 to 16. Focus here is going to be Azariah's long reign and downfall, and then we're going to see Zechariah, Shallum, and Menahem. Verse 1. In the 27th year of King Jeroboam of Israel, King Azariah, son of Amaziah of Judah, began to reign. He was 16 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jecoliah of Jerusalem. He did what was right in the sight of the Lord, just as his father Amaziah had done. Nevertheless, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and made offerings on the high places. The Lord struck the king so that he had a defiling skin disease to the day of his death and lived in a separate house. Jotham, the king's son, was in charge of the palace, governing the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Azariah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? Azariah slept with his ancestors. They buried him with his ancestors in the city of David. His son Jotham succeeded him. Verse 8. In the 38th year of King Azariah of Judah, Zechariah son of Jeroboam reigned over Israel in Samaria 6 months. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as his ancestors had done. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, that he caused Israel to sin. Shallum son of Jabesh conspired against him, and struck him down in Ibleam, and killed him, and reigned in place of him. Now the rest of the deeds of Zechariah are written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. This was the promise of the Lord that he gave to Jehu. Your son shall sit on the throne of Israel to the 4th generation. And so it happened. Verse 13. Shallum son of Jabesh began to reign in the 39th year of King Uzziah of Judah. He reigned 1 month in Samaria. Then Menahem son of Gadi came up from Tiphsah and came to Samaria. He struck down Shallum son of Jabesh in Samaria and killed him. He reigned in place of him. Now the rest of the deeds of Shallum, including the conspiry that he made, are written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. At that time Menahem sacked Tiphsah, all who were in it, and its territory from Tirzah on, because they did not open it to him. He sacked it. He ripped open all the pregnant women in it. So quite a dramatic end to that section. We see here that Azariah has a 52-year reign, and it's quite significant because this is one of the longest reigns in Judah, and he does what is right in the sight of the Lord. He experiences a remarkable degree of stability, But his story contains an important warning. There is going to be another fuller account in 2 Chronicles chapter 26. Uzziah or Azariah becomes strong, and then his heart becomes proud. His long period of success actually doesn't make him immune to spiritual danger. But there is a new temptation, the temptation to believe that because God has blessed us for such a long time, we no longer need humility. We no longer need to be subservient to God. Instead, we are gods in some sense, which is obviously wrong. The other thing that is here is that the chapter mentions that Azariah gets a defiling skin disease, probably leprosy, and the king, who appears powerful, must now all of a sudden live separately because of the disease. The throne remains, but the king's ordinary life is radically and dramatically changed. And this is quite a vivid reminder that the king has human power, and human power has its limits. A person could possess all the wealth, influence, achievement, or status in the entire world and still be profoundly dependent upon God. No earthly position makes us self-sufficient, and that is the most important thing to remember. The other thing I would mention is that the chapter says Azariah did what was right, even though the high places remained, because, again, we've seen this a few times now, biblical faithfulness can coexist with incomplete reform. His reform is incomplete. Obviously, there are steps to success. Even if you haven't fixed everything, then none of your obedience matters? No, that's not true. You're working towards something. God calls us to faithfulness, and he continues to expose areas that need growth. And then in verses 8 to 16, we see Zechariah, Shallum, and Menahem. We see that Israel moves through kings so quickly. Zechariah reigns for 6 months, then Shallum for 1 month, then Menahem kills Shallum and takes the throne. And the idea here is that the political violence is now becoming so commonplace and normal that once assassination becomes an accepted path to power, nobody can feel secure, and then we see a lot of instability here. If you let sin through the back door, it comes and takes a place on your bed, because it's funny, the way that they describe these assassinations, it's so matter-of-fact, it's so flippant. It's quite shocking how quickly the violence is actually becoming routine. One king is killed, another takes his place, another assassinates him, and the cycle continues. And the sin becomes especially dangerous when it stops shocking us. Something that would have seemed unthinkable is now becoming ordinary. And this is related to our own lives, how sin can become normal and eventually unquestioned. Okay, let's read verses 17 to 31. We're going to talk about Menahem, Pekahiah, and Pekah. Verse 17, in the 39th year of King Azariah of Judah, Menahem, son of Gadi, began to reign over Israel. He reigned 10 years in Samaria. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart all his days from any of the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that he caused Israel to sin. King Pul of Assyria came against the land. Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver so that he might help him confirm his hold on the royal power. Menahem exacted the silver from Israel, that is, from all the wealthy, 50 shekels of silver from each one, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and did not stay there in the land. Now the rest of the deeds of Menahem, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Menahem slept with his ancestors, and his son Pekahiah succeeded him. Verse 23, in the 50th year of King Azariah of Judah, Pekahiah, son of Menahem, began to reign over Israel in Samaria. He reigned 2 years. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that he caused Israel to sin. Pekah, son of Remaliah, his captain, conspired against him with 50 of the Gileadites and attacked him in Samaria, in the citadel of the palace, along with Argob and Ariah. He killed him and reigned in place of him. Now the rest of the deeds of Pekahiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Verse 27, in the 52nd year of King Azariah of Judah, Pekah, son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria. He reigned 20 years. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that he caused Israel to sin. In the days of King Pekah of Israel, King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria came and captured Ijon, Abel Bethmaachah, Genoa, Kedesh, Hazor, Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and he carried the people captive to Assyria. Then Hoshea, son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, son of Remaliah, attacked him and killed him. He reigned in place of him. In the 20th year of Jotham, son of Uzziah, Now the rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did are written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. So we see a few things here. Menahem actually, I don't know if we noticed this, but he gave or paid tribute to Assyria, because Assyria is becoming increasingly powerful, Israel's becoming increasingly dependent, and eventually Assyria takes territory from Israel and carries people away. So this is interesting. We're seeing the principle of compromise taking place here. What is a small concession can create dependence, and spiritually this can happen as well. If you make a small compromise in your spiritual life, you start to become dependent on the compromise because it starts to demand more and more from you. Then Pekah continues the sins of Jeroboam, because one king after another repeats the same pattern, and it's become a culture of sin. And this chapter is particularly relevant today because we can very easily say, well, that's just how things are. That's what's societally acceptable. No. And Assyria takes Ijon, Abel-Methmaachah, Genoa, Kedesh, Hazor, Gilead, Galilee, Naphtali, because the kingdom is beginning to fracture geographically. And the political instability of Israel is now producing all of these consequences. So the northern kingdom is actually losing pieces of itself. The kingdom has lost its spiritual center and now is losing its stability. Okay, let's read verses 32 to 38 now. Focus here is going to be Jotham's reign in Judah. Verse 32. In the second year of King Pekah, son of Remaliah of Israel, King Jotham, son of Uzziah of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in the sight of the Lord, just as his father Uzziah had done. Nevertheless, the high places were not removed. The people still sacrificed and made offerings on the high places. He built the upper gate of the house of the Lord. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? In those days the Lord began to send King Rezin of Aram and Pekah son of Remaliah against Judah. Jotham slept with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. His ancestor, his son, Ahaz, succeeded him. So there's quite a lot of chaos going on in Israel, and yet Jotham is immediately introduced here. And there's a contrast, because Jotham did what was right in the sight of the Lord. Israel is filled with assassinations, with violence, with compromise, with instability. And then we turn to Judah, and we see Jotham is doing what is right. And there's important encouragement here. You shouldn't imitate the spiritual condition of those around you. In fact, faithfulness is possible even when faithlessness is normal around you. The other thing I would mention is faithfulness is not pretending that everything around you is fine. Jotham faces difficulty even though he does what is right. Okay, Jotham is faithful, Judah still faces opposition. Let's see how this chapter fulfills Jesus Christ. Okay, so 2 Kings chapter 15 creates a stark contrast between kings who grasp for power and the kind of king God's people actually need. Israel's kings, they repeatedly seize authority, power through violence, whilst Judah's kings struggle to remain faithful. What's more is that the entire system of human kingship that we see here is fragile, and yet Scripture continues to move toward the promised son of David. Jesus is the king who does not seize power through violence or protect his throne through assassination. Instead, he willingly lays down his life. His kingdom is established not through killing his enemies, but through dying for them. The chapter also reminds us that God's people are called to remain faithful even when the surrounding culture becomes unstable. Jesus fulfills this perfectly. He enters a world full of political violence, full of religious hypocrisy and spiritual compromise, yet remains completely faithful to the Father, and he calls his disciples to do the same, to be faithful witnesses rather than reflections of the culture around them. And that's why we read in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, "Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." 2 Kings chapter 15 shows us what happens when God's people become conformed to the violence and instability that surrounds them. But Romans 12 gives us the alternative. Don't let the world shape you, let God transform you, and you can shape the world. Okay, let's apply this chapter in our everyday life. What are areas in your life, or what are the areas in your life where you've normalized compromise, What is something that you used to think was wrong, but now you've gradually stopped being bothered by it? I want you to write it down honestly before God and take steps to confront it this week. It's really important that we take the time to assess not only what we've become normalized to, but also to avoid conforming and to avoid compromising. Because there are also areas where people around you, the culture, the contemporary society, all of these things, they shape your thinking more than Scripture. Obviously, we need to try and make Scripture the foundation, and all of these other things are side quests in some sense. But money, status, relationships, entertainment, all of these things usually take center stage in our lives, and we need to stop that. How exactly do we stop that when we're so inundated with so much content contrary to the gospel? We trust the word, the verbum, the logos over our thoughts, faith over feelings. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. We learned that long-term success does not remove our need for humility, that the cost of compromise tends to increase over time, that people who abandon God as their security become dependent on other powers or vices, and that Jesus is the true king who establishes his kingdom through sacrificial love rather than violence. Next time in 2 Kings chapter 16, we're going to see how King Ahaz faces a terrifying military crisis and makes a devastating decision. He turns to Syria for help and ultimately reshapes Judah's worship according to a foreign altar. And we're going to unpack what happens when fear makes us trade faithfulness for security. You don't want to miss it. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate the show and follow. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.